Pastor Matthew Stuckey here, and I'm giving you a book review of A Defense of Calvinism by Charles Spurgeon. Really, it's a booklet because it is only 32 pages. Actually, it was originally one chapter in his autobiography. There are modern versions of A Defense of Calvinism that take his writing and merge it with several of his sermons. What I read was just his original writing, the one chapter from his autobiography, 32 pages. It's now a booklet. And I want to give just 3 takeaways from the booklet. Now, obviously, I'm an independent fundamental Baptist, so I do reject Calvinism 100%. And so I do believe in eternal security, but I believe in the preservation of the saints, not the perseverance. But I do want to give you an accurate book review. And point number one of the debates about Charles Spurgeon is, was he really a Calvinist? Because independent fundamental Baptists, they love Charles Spurgeon. And when you point out that he wrote this book, they'll say, well, he wrote that, but he didn't mean Calvinism like other people mean Calvinism. But I can say, having read this, there's no doubt he truly did believe in Calvinism, just like John Calvin. And here's a few quotes from the book. The old truth that Calvin preached, that Augustine preached, that Paul preached, is the truth that I must preach today, or else be false to my conscience and my God. I cannot shape the truth. I know of no such thing as paring off the rough edges of a doctrine. John Knox's gospel is my gospel. That which thundered through Scotland must thunder through England again. Another quote, I suppose there are some persons whose minds naturally incline towards the doctrine of free will. I can only say that mine inclines as naturally towards the doctrines of sovereign grace. Sometimes when I see some of the worst characters in the street, I feel as if my heart must burst forth in tears of gratitude that God has never let me act as they have done. So it's pretty clear from these quotes, he believes in Calvinism. He does not believe in free will. I mean, the man was not an idiot. He knows what John Calvin taught. He knows what Augustine taught. He was a Calvinist. So if you believe the things that I believe, you should not be a fan of Charles Spurgeon. Number 2, he makes a bizarre quote that there's going to be more people in heaven than in hell. He says, the Father's love is not for a few only, but for an exceeding great company. A great multitude which no man could number will be found in heaven. A man can reckon up to very high figures, set to work your Newtons, your mightiest calculators, and they can count great numbers, but God and God alone can tell the multitude of his redeemed. I believe there will be more in heaven than in hell. If anyone asks me why I think so, I answer because Christ in everything is to have the preeminence, and I cannot conceive how he could have the preeminence if there are to be more in the dominions of Satan than in paradise. Moreover, I've never read that there is to be in hell a great multitude which no man could number. I mean, there's billions of people in the world today, and nobody could number anywhere near these amounts. The Bible speaks about the great multitude in Revelation 7 as the rapture has taken place. And yeah, when you count everybody saved throughout all of time, it is a multitude of people. But the Bible is very clear, enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. It's very clear in Matthew 7, in the Sermon on the Mount, that the vast majority of people are going to go to hell. So that's just a bizarre quote. He does bring up babies in the booklet, saying a lot of babies have died, and saying they go to heaven. But that still would not offset the number that are going to be going in hell being much more than in heaven, because the vast majority of people are unsaved. And people that are Calvinists generally think anyone who claims Christianity is saved. And obviously you can see that from his words, but it's just a bizarre quote. That's just not what the Bible teaches. The vast majority of people die and go to hell. That's what the Bible teaches. And lastly, which was interesting, is he praises John Wesley. John Wesley is famous for being an Arminian. He believed you could lose your salvation. Very prominent with the United Methodist Church. And he says, most atrocious things have been spoken about the character and spiritual condition of John Wesley, the modern prince of Arminians. I can only say concerning him that while I detest many of the doctrines which he preached, yet for the man himself I have a reverence second to no Wesleyan. And if there were wanted 2 apostles to be added to the number of the 12, I do not believe that there could be found 2 men more fit to be so added than George Whitefield and John Wesley. The character of John Wesley stands beyond all imputation for self-sacrifice, zeal, holiness, and communion with God. He lived far above the ordinary level of common Christians and was one of whom the world was not worthy. Now, John Wesley and George Whitefield were actually paired together as preachers, and George Whitefield was into Calvinism, and John Wesley was against it, but they worked side by side and they were okay and they got along. And what you actually see is that Calvinists and Arminians pretty much believe the same thing. With Calvinists, if somebody does not have the works, they'll say they were never saved. With Arminians, if they don't have the works, they'll say they lost their salvation. So to them, on both groups, having belief without having the works ends in hell. Well, that's not what the Bible teaches. What the Bible teaches is that you can have faith without works. But to him that worketh not, but believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. So it kind of shows that Calvinists and Arminians pretty much believe the same thing. So it's a quick read. If you want to read it, you're welcome to. It's obviously, I don't believe in this at all. Those were the three most noteworthy things. But anyways, thank you and God bless.